Hi friends, and welcome to Talking with Famous People. I'm your host Eric, and today we're going to make a video called Worst Job for Each of the 16 Types. Intp, Trauma Counselor. And not only do they hate it, but they're terrible at it. Fi Polar and Te Countervaluing. I don't like emotions as an ENFP, and additionally, if you want to present me with a problem, I want to solve it quickly and get it over with. I don't want to stand around and admire it. Of course, if a loved one dies, that's not a good approach. INTP, taxi driver. They hate it and they suck at it. If your friend has crashed his car multiple times, he just might be an INTP. INTPs are famously terrible drivers and generally stop driving at a fairly young age. They can't pay attention to the SE long enough. They get lost in their head and then they crash their car. Taxi driver requires them not only to pay attention to the SE, but to pay attention to the SI and the TE of where they're going. So it's not a good job. Plus, it requires more FE of them than they want chatting with the people in the car. Not a good job at all. They hate it and they suck at it. ESTP, Catholic monk with a vow of silence. Hate it, but they'd make it work because, you know, they got to be a team player. So, you know. ISFJ, bomb diffuser. They hate it, but they only fail at it once because then they're dead. ISFJs cannot figure out how to open a box if it doesn't say lid here on the top. There's no way in hell an ISFJ on their luckiest day of their life would ever be able to successfully defuse a bomb, no matter how long you spent training them how to do it. ENFJ, court reporter. Hate it, make it work, because once again, they're team players for a while anyway, they make it work. But the reason they hate it is because it requires them to keep track of what's being said, have no opinion about it at all, and no matter how awful or whatever happens, be just a archivist, an SI thing, and they're SI polar, so that's not going to be favorable for them. They have no way of FEing anything. Their NI is meaningless because they're just keeping track of what other people say. They hate it, but they make it work, like I said, because FE means they try to be perceived as doing a good job anyway. INFJ, Postmaster General. They'd hate it, they'd suck at it, and they'd probably quit in not too long. Like, wait, I gotta figure out where all this mail goes? Okay, fuck that noise. ESTP, Archivist, Document Restoration. Why? Well, because they're stuck in like the basement of a library dealing with very meticulous work of like making sure this letter L in this ancient document looks exactly as it did originally. No opportunity to interface with people. The doing part of it is extremely slow and it never seems to get to an outcome really. And when you do get to an outcome, the only thing that happens is you put the book back where it belongs. That would be terrible work for ESTP. They need a lot more interface and activity and stuff with the world. They'd hate it. They'd make it work for a while, but they'd quit pretty quick, I guess. You know, they do have the capacity to do. Rachel and I had the hardest time coming up with the worst job for ESTP because everything we could think of, we go, no, they'd be good at that too. It's like I think of all the types, they're the type that's good at everything more than ENTP for sure. ENTPs are good at specific things and terrible at other things. So, ISTP, romance novelist. They'd hate it, but they'd make it work if it paid well. They'd somehow grind out their romance novels.
Yeah.
ENFP, philosopher. I'm sorry, they should say love it and suck. They think they're great, but they're terrible at it. So just look at Foucault or Judith Butler or Brian Singer. Those are some ENFP philosophers who love it and suck. And suck to the detriment of us all. INFP, drill sergeant. They would hate it and suck and probably quit immediately. Or something. I don't know. It's having to give a bunch of orders without any explanation as to why, to insist that everybody follow the orders, and to just all the orders being about doing shit all the time. That would just be an absolute nightmare. You have to not care about people's feelings. In fact, you've got to use their own feelings against them. Are you some sort of crybaby soldier? You better blah, 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 blah. You got to do that stuff, and that's not INFP fun time. ESTJ, relationship counseling. Like it, suck at it, and believe themselves great at it. Don't go down to 2 lines. And wrongly confident. ESTJs have no business giving relationship advice or psychotherapy or anything like that. Why? Because they are so enamored with their own TE frame that they're just guaranteed to throw it onto everybody they deal with, regardless of whether it's appropriate. ISTJ, improv comedy troupe leader. They'd hate it, they'd suck, they'd quit immediately. It's asking them to improvise any when they want to be able to do it any only on their own terms. And it's asking them to do it in a way that's appealing to other people using FE, which is their polar. It's like the worst possible job for an ISTJ. ENTJ, sleep study participant. So what they're required to do is just stay in bed and sleep. And, relax. Just chill, relax, sleep. They'd hate it and fail completely. INTJ, wedding dress salesperson. They'd hate it, but they'd make it work. So the ideal wedding dress salesperson goes, is this your dress? Because I am seeing princess. But I don't think INTJ would really ever quite get that shtick down. If you've ever seen Say Yes to the Dress, I was married to an ESFJ, so I'm rather familiar with the show Say Yes to the Dress. It was one of the things that she regularly watched, along with Real Housewives of Orange County. You know who the guy who's in Say Yes to the Dress, Rachel? Mm-hmm. You know that main guy? He goes,
the white hair.
Yeah, he's kind of got he's very clean, elegant looking, kind of feminine man. Mm-hmm. And he goes, is this your dress?
He does. I remember him wearing a purple suit once.
Yeah, he's got some flair. Yeah. He's got a little bit of the dandy in him. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's not an INTJ. Replace him with an INTJ, and does that show work very differently? Yes, it does. ESFP, lawyer. They'd hate it. They'd suck. It would be like, okay, judge, the prosecutor just got up here and said a whole bunch of words. But my point is, what do words mean anyway? I mean, look, you don't know him. You don't know my client. You don't know how he feels. These words, you're just boxing him in with your words, calling him criminal and murderer and stabber and violent guy. But you don't know him. It wouldn't work. ISFP, press secretary. Hate it and suck. Press secretary has to stand up in front of a bunch of people from the media who are all like, yeah, you. And then shout and ask the person tough questions that they have to come up with answers for on the fly. So I think this would push so hard on the ISFP's polar extroverted intuition, along with their ignoring FE, that they would ultimately explode and splatter all over the press. And that's the 16 personalities and which job is worst for each one. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Do 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 Talking with famous people.